And I know we may all be in different parts of the land that these days we call the US. So I'm on Duwamish and the Coast Salish traditional territory. And in Seattle, where I am, the Duwamish tribe are still looking for recognition from the federal government. And so if you're in Seattle, this is a really great way to support them in their ongoing struggle by paying what we call real rent. And you can do that at realrentduwamish.org, I think. And if you're somewhere else on someone else's land, why don't you put it into the chat so that we can see where else we are? So I see I live on Squaxin Island Tribe and Skokomish Nation territory. Traditional and current lands, thank you. Got Toronto, Anishinabawaki. I don't want to mess up the names there. So if you haven't got your chat open, please open it because you can see all the lands, the peoples whose lands we are on. And let's do what we can to not make this just be a checklist thing that we're doing, but actually to do what we can to support the people whose lands we're on in real life. Thank you.
And if you don't know whose lands you're on, you should look it up so that you can acknowledge it in the future and learn about the peoples whose lands you're on.
Yes, thank you. So we'll just do a few tech things, logistical things before we get going. So if you can mute yourself when you're not speaking, that's very helpful. Please rename yourself if you wish. You can do that. Often it's on your little box, there's 3 dots. And you can go there and rename yourself, and you can put in your preferred pronouns if you want to do that. You can put in where you are. You can change your name. Whatever works for you. You could put your racial identity if you wish. And we will be having some instructions for the breakout rooms in the chat, so you definitely want the chat open at that point as well. At various points when we ask things, you could put them in the chat, or if you want to speak, we can't see everyone on the screen at the same time, so you can try putting your hand up literally like this, but if we can't see you, we won't work. So if you go to participants, usually somewhere in there, depending on what you're on, but there's a thing where it says raise hands. So you can try raising your hand there if you want to speak. But the chat is also another way to speak. There's speaker and gallery view. So gallery view, usually you can see lots and lots of people's faces, and it's fun to have it open on that. But if you want to just see the speaker, you can put it on speaker view. I would recommend gallery view because you don't want to just look at me and Ellen a lot, or at least, yeah. And as we said, we are recording. So if you don't want to be on the recording, then you might turn your video off, but please open it in the breakout rooms because they won't be recorded. And then you can see each other and interact with each other. So, and it's also really fun just to see everyone's faces. So those of you who are okay with your videos on, really appreciate it. So we get a little bit of feedback and it isn't just looking at a blank screen here. For anyone who needs closed captions, we have got that going, and somewhere, you know, at the bottom of your screen, if you're on a desktop at least, it's at the bottom of the screen somewhere, it might say CC, and you can say show subtitles, and then it does automatic closed captioning. And so it's a bit like Alexa or whoever, Siri, whatever. They're sometimes inaccurate, but at least they're there. And so you can try that if you need it.
It is probably, it might be in the more category down there with 3 little dots for some of you.
Thank you. Yeah, and if you have any problems with that, then if you can, send a private chat message to 350 Seattle, which is Jake, our tech support, and he's listed there under 350 Seattle. Great. Yeah. So we will be doing some practice, de-escalation practice in breakout rooms. And so if you have other people in the room that you're in or the house, at some point we might be sort of yelling so that you get some practice at de-escalating and staying calm and centered in escalated situations. So you might want to just warn them that if they hear yelling, they don't need to worry, it's okay, right? So especially if you have, kids around or something. So just so you know, that won't be, we'll have a bit of time before we get to the breakout rooms. So we have 2 trainers today, myself and Ellen Finkelstein. And so Ellen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm delighted to see you all virtually today. I am, as Vivian said, one of the 2 folks who's going to be leading this training. I and Vivian, I'll say, I'm a longtime activist, organizer, and trainer. I've done a lot of different kinds of work with people, particularly right now I'm working with the Pledge of Resistance with 350 Seattle, among other groups, but have also worked on a wide variety of issues ranging from ACT UP in Chicago many years ago and anti-war stuff during the Central American wars, and recently, as I say, a lot of work around climate and racial justice and equity. Vivian, you want to say a few things?
Thank you. I might just say ditto because I also, longtime activist, doing very similar things, just basically organizing, doing, and training people in direct action for 30, 40 years. And very excited about, not only very unhappy about some of the things that are happening in this moment, but also very excited about what's happening in this moment because of the upsurge of direct action and activism that is having a lot of impact. So very excited to see you all, while also recognizing these are very difficult times. And in my day job, my paid work life, I'm a mediator and trainer and facilitator. All right. So, and we just, both Ellen and I want to acknowledge that the trainings that we do, we are really standing on the shoulders of all the people, all the activists, all the trainers, all the organizers who have come before us. We are both white, and we want to recognize all the people of color, all the indigenous people, all the Black people who have done amazing work in these areas. And some of the exercises that we'll be doing today come out of the civil rights movement. For example, they were doing similar things, the similar trainings back then and before, I'm sure, as well. So normally in real life, we do these trainings and we have everyone say a little thing, something about themselves and stuff, but we're not going to do that now because we have too many people. So what we'd love, though, is if you could just look at who's here, right? Just look around and maybe scroll through your screens. You might have, I don't know how many screens, I have 6. I don't know how many you have, but just look around at who's here and let's wave hello to each other and just appreciate that we're here. It's just so fun to see you all and look at your renamed things. Some of you have said where you are, and that's really cool to see where people are. All right, thank you for being here. Oh, great, and seeing your kids as well. That's exciting. All right. Also, if you're new to protesting, why don't you just write new in the chat? And we'll get a sense. We want to welcome anyone who's new to protesting because we need you. We need every person in the movement. So anyone who's new, let's give some appreciation to you for joining us. Yay.
Whoa,
All right.
oh, look at all those news. Yay.
Yay.
Which is not to not welcome all of you who have been doing this for a while, however long that's been.
That's
One
right.
of the things I will say a number of times is you can never practice too much, you can never learn too much, and you can never be out in the streets too much.
Absolutely. No major social change has ever happened without people doing direct action and being out in the streets. Okay, so why don't you also just in the chat put one word that comes to mind when you think of the word de-escalate. De-escalate. What's something that comes to mind when you think about de-escalating? Calming, breathe, distract, safety, redirection, resolution, redirect the energy, slow down, nice, nonviolent communication, stacking, nonviolence, grounding, balance, calming, nuanced, beautiful, quelling, respect, problem solving, presence, so important. Yeah. So all those things so important to de-escalation. And those are the things we'll be practicing and talking about today. So in terms of ground rules, we just wanted to encourage to have everyone commit to confidentiality about any personal stories that people share. Anything personal that someone shares, we don't want to be sharing without their express permission. So just share your own stories if you want, but don't share someone else's without their permission. And let's just share the space respectfully. So those are our suggested ground rules. Can you put your thumbs up or show in some visual way that you're good with those, you're committed to those? There's also the reactions thing there where you can put your thumb up there, or you can give appreciation like that, if you can find that on your screen, or do a heart. Yeah, great. Thank you. And before we just move into the agenda, I just wanted to acknowledge that we really are in some very momentous times. You know, the life and death from racism was always there, but now we have COVID-19 as well, and that's exposing in very obvious ways the systemic racism that was already there. And the uprising that we're in is having amazing impacts, but it is still all in the balance as we head towards potential fascism. We've got the elections. The climate crisis is still going, as you know, as is really obvious at the moment. So it's a very, very stressful and momentous time. It's very exciting in certain ways and really terrifying in others. So we just want to acknowledge that. And it's a very escalated time, right? Just all those things that I just mentioned are enough to make us always quite escalated. So learning how to de-escalate ourselves is probably the most important thing that we can do, to really notice and focus on not only the terrible things that are happening, but also the joy of just being alive, of each other, of connection, of community, of self-care, and of self-care of others, and just gratitude. So I just want to express my gratitude for all of you and everyone else who's taking action in these times. And let's just spread that gratitude around to anyone who's suffering, anyone who needs it, and to ourselves. So if you can just put your hands on your heart and give yourself and everyone in the world some gratitude and appreciation and love. And I'm gonna hand it over to Ellen.
Thanks, Vivian. I just want to talk briefly about the overall agenda for a minute with you all. And again, to emphasize that this is a basic de-escalation and peacekeeping training. And it's, as Vivian said, it's relevant to all of us who go out and participate in protests, whether or not you are a designated de-escalator peacekeeper in a protest. These are useful skills. They're also useful in your everyday life, honestly, or they can be. The training that we are doing, obviously, is different from the trainings we used to do when we were all in the same space together. So we are still learning how to do this. The breakout rooms are one way of trying to approximate some of that interaction that you actually have out on the street, but it's a different experience. And also these trainings are sometimes longer than this is going to be. We are scheduled to go till 1:30. We will keep to that. And there will be a break in the middle. We welcome any suggestions moving forward so we can keep getting better at doing these kinds of trainings, particularly online. And again, because of the nature of this, we're going to share some different skills and information about de-escalation sort of on the early side of the training, and then there will be a number of opportunities for breakout rooms for these things, and then we will talk about them as we go. There will also be a brief break, and we're going to have some stretching as we go, so we're all just not staring at screens forever. Because of the times we are living in, as Vivian mentioned, because demonstrations and protests are sort of kicking off spontaneously or with very little notice, some of the organizing that people who have been around for a while may be used to are don't apply in the same way. So you may show up at a demonstration that's called hours before, and you may know or you may not know who's organized it and what's happening. And that affects the ways that we interact, but it also elevates the need for us all when we go out, and not all of us can, and I want to acknowledge that. Some of us need to separate more. But when we go out, that we have at least one other person with us as a buddy, or preferably a team, particularly if we're going to be acting to de-escalate in some meaningful way. And you can never practice these skills too much. We are recording, as we have said. The recording and resources are going to go out for you. Vivian just posted, I'm not sure it actually linked, Vivian, a PDF in the chat room. We will be sending out that and other resources as well as we go. After we're done with this training, probably in a couple of days, you'll get an email with all this information, including the slides we're going to show and share as we go. So you don't have to scribble frantically or stare fixed at the screen. If you have had, and I know there's some of you on here because I know you, who have had de-escalation training or have experience in de-escalation or peacekeeping, if you just want to, again, indicate that in the chat by saying yes, that would be great to know. So people with peacekeeping experience training. And there's a long string of yeses and somes and nonviolent communications, some recent, some a long time ago, some who have gone through other trainings like nonviolent direct action. All of that applies. All of that is great. And different people bring different skill sets to the practice of de-escalation and nonviolence. One of the things I also want to acknowledge as we go forward is that because this is a basic training and because of our expertise and lack thereof, there are some things that you probably want to know about that we're not going to really be answering, such as what do you do when the weapons come out, particularly. That is a question that we are all in various ways struggling with and trying to figure out how to deal with. And we will talk a little bit about figuring out what to do and how to figure that out, but not so much about the particulars about weapons. That's above our pay grade, I'd say, or expertise. There are also a number of other trainings that people have mentioned in the chat already, and some trainings that are coming up. We will also send them out, but there is a jail and bail support training on Wednesday that 350 Seattle is putting on. There is a militant nonviolent civil disobedience training in Seattle that is happening on October 4th. That's an in-person thing by Reverend Siku, who is fabulous for those of you who have not experienced his trainings. And there are certainly other trainings that are happening. Again, emphasizing that we try to come from and work in an anti-oppression perspective of looking to end oppressive systems. We don't want to enact them in whatever way we're involved in demonstrations, which means, among other things, taking the leadership from Black, Indigenous, and other people of color in these demonstrations, not just around Black Lives Matter, I will underscore, but in all of these issues, looking to people who are most impacted to be the leaders and to follow their lead. As we act, particularly those of us who are white and privileged, need to be mindful of the privilege we have and the bias we have, and pay attention to how we're treating everybody. The more privilege you have, the more you need to sort of pay attention to that. So I will underscore personally that for some of you who are present as males, who are men, you need to pay attention to that in the same way that those of us who are white need to pay attention to it. There's a fine line between de-escalating and jumping in and thinking you're taking charge of things. And that is not what we are advocating for in this training. So before we move fully into some of the details, I would ask people again to just take a moment of silence. I'm going to stop talking in a minute and ground in, sort of be fully present. It's different to being fully present online, and I want to say I have a really hard time with it, but to just take a moment, breathe in, breathe out, be fully present so that you can get as much from the next couple of hours as possible. Thank you. And I'm going to pass it back to Vivian to talk about action roles a little bit.
All right, thank you. Yeah, and if you want to do a little stretch at this point, absolutely at any point, please. We have bodies. We aren't designed to look at a screen for 5, 10, 15 hours a day. Please, at any point, just help you look after your body. We are embodied. So very important. So we wanted to put in this piece about action roles, which isn't directly related to de-escalation, but it's so useful if you're out there in the protest world and maybe, a little newer and may not realize all the different roles that the organizers of the protest might be taking. So we wanted to empower you so that you can know some of this stuff. And then when you start organizing, if you haven't already, you'll know some of the things that you need to think about beforehand. So peacekeeper or de-escalator is one of the roles that sometimes organizers choose to have in their actions, and that's to help people stay calm, basically, and keep the action focused on the purpose of the action, not let it be derailed by people with other things in mind, or who just get upset, who are just upset about whatever's going on. So, and the roles will be different depending on the action, right? A march, you're going to have different roles than a blockade or an occupation or different kinds, a rally, right? But here are some or let's talk about some of the common roles that you've experienced in these. So we're just going to ask you what roles you've seen in actions or even taken on yourself. And then if there are any left that you haven't said, we'll just add those. So why don't you put in the chat some of the roles that you've seen in protests. Police liaison, and we'll talk about them. So police liaison is a really important one, right? And for that, usually that's the only person who talks to the police. That is the person. And so if you're just a member of the protest or you're a peacekeeper, right, your job is not to talk to the police, right? When they talk to you, you just send them to the police liaison. They are the designated person who's going to interact with the police. So that's really important for everyone to know. So you want to find out who the police liaison is. So yeah, let's see some of the others. I know there's so many here. So let's see. Traffic control, right? There are different kinds of traffic control, right? So there might be cars protecting the march from traffic, or there might be the bike brigade, yay, bike brigade, who are doing an amazing job of helping people stay safe. So various traffic control things, and sometimes it's just peacekeepers on foot. So in the past, before we had bike brigade, often it was the peacekeepers on foot who were doing the traffic control, and we would leapfrog from one intersection, hold it, right? And then the other peacekeepers would run ahead to the next intersection, get that one ready, and then we would leave, and then we'd go to the next intersection, and so on. So you can do that by foot, by car, by bike, or any other way that you can think of, because we want people to be safe, and cars, as we know, are very dangerous things. What else have we got? We've got peacekeeping, yes. So we'll be talking a lot about peacekeeping. Medics, right. So there are a lot of really well-trained medics in Seattle and other places. And so having some people there with some training is very, very helpful, especially if, pepper spray and other things might be used, or there might be violence from the police or others. Let's see, medical. I've heard a criticism that peacekeepers are there to police protesters, right? And so one of our jobs as trainers is we're always emphasizing our job is not to police the protesters. We're not telling people what to do. However, we are trying to help the organizers have the kind of protest that they want. And so we're inviting people to do what the organizers are trying to do. But definitely we're not there to police or tell people what to do. There's invitations there. Bike brigade, medic, water ferry. Hey, yeah. So you'll hear different words for that, but those are important. Snacks, supplies, things to help people be comfortable. Might be food, might be cushions. If you're locked down, it can be really uncomfortable for your body and for your arms and things like that. So it might be cushions. Might be sunblock, it might be umbrellas. So sometimes that's called direct support. Water ferries, I like the term. There's also Care Bear, there's another one. Live streamers, there's another important role, right? And also documenters, right? So just people taking photographs or live streaming or videoing. Looking at all these things, right? Protective gear, legal support, bailout funds, right? So you need to put a lot of work into thinking about your legal support, because you can never predict what might happen, right? You might not think that there'll be any need for legal support, but arrests and other things can happen surprisingly sometimes. So it is very good to think about that ahead of time. You might want legal observers from the National Lawyers Guild. You might want to have jail support people who are not at the action, so that they can have, they can do their work from a safe space. Bail funds, yeah. So you want to think about all these things. And Ellen and another person will be leading a great training coming up. When is that one, Ellen? It's coming up soon. You're on mute.
Somehow. It's on Wednesday, September 30th
Yeah,
from
great.
7 to 9 p.m.
Coming up soon. So if you're interested in legal support, that's a great one to go to. Legal observers, speakers, right. Another one is media liaison. So we have police liaison. That's the person or people who are designated to interact with the police. Then there's media liaisons. They're people designated to interact with the media, and they may or may not be the actual spokespeople. They might be just pointing the media to the designated spokespeople, or they might be the spokespeople who are speaking for the march or for the organizers. So you want to know, if you're the peacekeeper lead, right? If you're organizing the peacekeepers, you want to know who those people are so that you can make sure people are referred to them. Because there's usually a particular message that the organizers want put out. So they have practiced and they know how to stay on target with the message that they want out, and they don't let themselves get distracted by more stupid questions from the media, right, that are irrelevant to what they're trying to say. Great. Scouts, so people who look ahead of time and even during the action as things change, who are like scouting out the situation and seeing what options are available, because often surprising things happen that you're not expecting. And so it really helps to be thinking ahead of time and during it, and staying flexible the whole time. Yeah. Let's see. Any other chant leaders, speakers, leafleters, right? Often there are marches and things, but there's no way for the people who are nearby to know what it's for, or, so you can have people who are designated to give them leaflets or talk with them and let them know what's going on, and that way you reach more people. Friendly locals with bathrooms, very helpful. Yeah, that's really good to know where those are on your route. Communications, comms team, right? Social media, people who are doing that. Any others? Let's see. Worker liaisons. If you're, blocking a business or something, then it's good to have some people who are designated to talk to the workers and let them know what's going on and why, and maybe do some de-escalation. And there's a lot going on in the chat, and I'm sorry I can't keep my eye on all of it. But I think that's basically the main roles that you are generally going to see in some protests, depending on what it is. If you're the coordinator of the peacekeepers, then you're going to be helping the peacekeepers, do a little training for them before the action, right? Just orient them to the goals and get them into teams, get them into buddies. Don't let them work alone, right? We want to support each other. And helping assign people to where they're going to be stationed as peacekeepers if you've got designated peacekeepers. Great. Yeah, any questions? And feel free to put them in the chat if we don't get them verbally. But if not, let's move right on. We want to keep going here. So, Ellen, what is de-escalation peacekeeping?
Well, I'm going to ask you all because, yes, Vivian just said that there are all these roles. I'll just throw in all the other people that are there. You can't really have a protest with just people filling roles, right? There need to be other people there. So hats off to organizers who get people to show up. But then if you are there, what do you think? What is de-escalation? Why is it useful at protests to have people who are thinking about de-escalation, whether they're specifically assigned that role or have taken it on, or they're just there and think, time for me to put on my de-escalation cape and do that? Can you put in the chat why would de-escalation be a useful thing in a protest situation? Thoughts? on why aggressors come at you, how to handle other people. I know people on this list have been, on this call, have been, there you go. Keep the focus on the purpose of the action, do some grounding, harm reduction, avoid violence or mitigate it, look for problems before they happen, see if anybody involved, like pay attention around, follow the BIPOC organizers and support equity, figuring out how to avoid panic, helping to avoid panic. Defusing situations, great. One of the things, Jacob, I'm going to ask you to put up slide number 2, if you would kindly. So one of the things that we have started thinking about just in terms of de-escalation is 3 main things that stick in my head are 3 C's. One is calm, as in the more calm you are, and we're going to practice some skills about that, the more able you are to communicate that calm and help spread the calm among people. Number 2C is communicate. So communicate with other people that you are working with to de-escalate, your team of peacekeepers, and also to communicate with other people to help facilitate, as we've been talking about, people have said, people's movement, let people know where bathrooms are, say where we're going, all of those other things, and help people move through the space. And the 3rd C is contain, as in if there is a situation that needs to be de-escalated or diffused, make sure that the bulk of people are able to continue to pursue the goal of whatever the action is and to continue moving on with it so that people can achieve the goal again. If that's possible, we're going to talk more about different kinds of containment or de-escalation as we go, but that's one of the things. So if you go away with nothing but those 3 words in your head, it will help you think about how to move forward. Sorry. Thanks, Jacob. And again, people have put a bunch of other things in the chat while I was talking. I'm not going to scroll through them all and try and pull them out because I'm less good at that than some
I
people.
could just say one that was really coming through from several people that is so important, which is helping the protest reach its goals and not get derailed.
Yes.
I think that's just a really big part of it. So not allowing ourselves to be provoked into getting into pointless arguments with counter protesters or other things like that.
And the other thing that I didn't see anybody mention in particular in situations is that often there are people who might be targeted at protests by the police or by ICE or by counter demonstrators, the fascists. And one of the roles often of peacekeepers or de-escalators is to offer to escort or accompany those people so that they stay safe. Doesn't mean taking it upon yourself to decide whether they want you or not, but checking in with them to see if they would like assistance or a walk back to the bus or their car or whatever that might be. When we share resources, we will share some more about this, but I am going to move on, and absolutely putting safety at the high point is part of what de-escalation is about, is to keep yourself and the people around you safe. And that means a lot of different things these days. Jacob, could you show slide number 4?
Yes, just a sec. Sorry.
No problem. Many thanks to Jacob for being our technical person. So there are a mixture of what we classify as de-escalation and peacekeeping skills, and we're going to go through them now, the 4 things. And just, we wanted to give you a sense of what those are. So one is emotional grounding skills, to help you stay calm under stress, and to act from that strength, from that calm. The calmer you are, the more centered you are, another C, the more able you are to be able to act in an appropriate way and to spread that calm. Number 2 would be communications, clear, confident, again, both verbal and nonverbal, to the people that you're working with as peacekeeper or de-escalator, and also to everyone else. When things get chaotic, as they often do these days, it helps to be able to communicate clearly with people and calmly with people from that calm center, so that people are able to make decisions about how to act. The third is de-escalation. Key, obviously, for a de-escalator is to de-escalate. And what we mean by that is to help people gain back their own center and calm emotionally, so that they can then act from passion, yes, which we all have about these issues, but also from a position of being able to think logically about how to do and what to do. And the last is intervention. When something is out of control, whatever that might be, when things are really escalating in some way, being able to insert yourself so that help people diffuse that situation. It may actually, intervening sometimes results in further escalation. People should be aware, we'll talk about that in a bit. And it also puts you as an individual or as a team at a higher level of risk. So if you're intervening, again, we'll talk about this in a bit, but if you're intervening in any physical way in particular, you need to know that you are upping your own personal risk about what that's going to be. If you're interposing yourself, if you're interacting with police, particularly if you're interacting in some way with counter demonstrators, fascists, racists, etc. And I think that's all we'll say on that. And we'll move into the first of those with Vivian, which is emotional grounding.
Thank you. Great. So do a little stretch if you want. Let's ground our bodies. Deep breath. So as we've been saying, if you want to de-escalate other people, the most important thing to do is first to make sure that you are de-escalated. And so our ability to calm ourselves, to keep ourselves centered and calm is a really huge skill. And it gets better with practice, luckily. And we usually have opportunities to practice every day, right? There's usually something that happens. You just need to look at your phone sometimes and immediately I feel escalated, right? As soon as I look at what's going on in the world. But so we have many opportunities to practice calming and centering ourselves every day. And I think it's probably the most crucial skill to have, because when we're calm, it helps everyone around us stay calm. And a protest is a very escalated situation already. People are raising their voices where, you know, there's a lot of people around, that's escalating in itself. There's all this stuff going on that's quite escalating. So when you can help yourself regulate and stay calm in these circumstances, that will help everyone else. And we're human, so no one is calm all the time, right? Even the most experienced Buddhist practitioner, right? The Dalai Lama, right? I think I've heard him say that it's not like he's calm all the time. What's happened is he's just got so quick at noticing. He has his reaction, he centers, he notices, he centers, and then he can react from a calm place, right? But even he isn't just calm all the time and never reacts to anything, right? No human is. We're designed to react immediately, that we have that part of the brain. So usually the first reactions when there's an escalated situation is going to be the sort of fight, flight, or appease, right? So fight, flight, why do I say this wrong? Fight, I'll have to look at my fight, flight, freeze, and appease. Sorry, fight, flight, freeze, and appease. So why don't you just think for a second, what is your, usually we have a sort of more typical reaction for us when an escalated thing happens. Say someone just suddenly gets in your face and yells at you. What's your first reaction? Are you ready to fight back? Are you ready to run away? Are you frozen? Or are you trying to appease them and calm them down, right? So you could just put in the chat what your first reactions tend to be. So I'm seeing, you know, fight, flight, freeze, right? All of those, these are completely normal. We all do these things. And so it's not, we're not even trying to get rid of those. Those are very useful reactions. We need them. The thing to do if you want to then stay centered is to notice, oh, all right, I'm ready to fight this person who just, you know, said that really terrible racist thing, right? Then notice that, take a deep breath, calm yourself, center yourself. Or if you're ready to run, maybe you're needed in the protest, right? So you don't want to run. Take a deep breath, calm yourself, center yourself. So I think de-escalating is a lot about practicing calming ourselves when we have our first reaction. Just notice it without judgment. Love yourself. It's good. It's a good thing. And then calm yourself in whatever way works for you. And we'll talk a little bit about what are some of the ways that work for you. And we're seeing some of them already, like laugh. Okay, so maybe laughter can help. So why don't you just think silently for a minute. Just think, what are some of the things that in the moment, when you notice you're having a reaction, a fight, flight, freeze, appease reaction, what are some things that in the moment can help you to calm and center? And I would just suggest that our breath is our number one tool, right? Taking a beautiful deep breath down to your belly and then breathing out. Don't forget the breathing out because it's a really important part of it. But what else helps when you're in an escalated situation, you're having that fight, flight, freeze, appease reaction? What helps you to calm yourself? And just put that in the chat. Stay silent instead of reacting with your words. Nice, right? Just take a pause. You don't need to react immediately. A pause is a really helpful thing. And you know what? It actually helps the other person as well. Identifying, identifying 3 objects quietly to yourself. Sign, sidewalk, shoes. Right, just looking around, using your senses, noticing 3 things. Think about viable options available to you, right? You don't need to just react straight away. We can stop. I guess I got muted. Says the host muted you. That's so weird. I don't know what you couldn't hear there, but I'll just keep going. Ground with something like touch, smell, or sight, right? Actually, just one thing I do is feeling my feet on the earth. I actually feel my feet on the earth and remember that we're supported all the time. And that takes me out of my head and more into my body. Deep breath. First, do nothing. Yes. When in doubt, pause. Remind yourself that you're not alone. Absolutely. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing. Picturing yourself watching the situation slightly behind yourself as a literal form of observing, right? You're not alone. Nice. I find my calm power deep inside my body. I pull it over me like a hood. It calms me and protects everyone. Beautiful. Feet on the ground, feel them. Tapping with 3 fingers on my heart. These are all really wonderful ideas, and you'll find the ones that work for you, right? Some work for some of us better than others. Situational awareness, right? Look around, including behind you. Yeah. Breathing, pausing, glancing at your friend. If there's someone that there's consent to touch, touching your friend, just touching your side, touching yourself is actually very helpful. Relaxing your body. Beautiful. Counting with breath. That can be great. Yeah, and why don't you show slide 5 and let's see if there's any other ideas that we haven't already said. Sips of water, nice. Look for allies. And if breath doesn't work for you, that's fine. Right, you find the things that work for you. So we've got breathing deeply, pausing before reacting, counting to 5. Staying focused on purpose, I think, is absolutely key as well, right? Person is escalating in front of you, is yelling, is being disrespectful. We don't have to react, right? We can remember, why am I here, right? Is it going to help to actually engage aggressively with that person? No. Notice what's happening in your body, your feelings. Positive self-talk. I can do this. I'm going to remain calm. I'm with others. I'm not alone. Oh yeah, this one I think is really helpful, naming your emotions. Because when you actually put words to your emotions, it gets you into that other part, out of the amygdala, the fight, fight, freeze part of the brain, and into the part that can make decisions and more have choices. So naming your emotions really helps. Naming the other person's emotions helps them too. Focus on safe sensory experiences. We've mentioned touch, a ring or a stone or a significant object you carry with you. Think of someone that you admire. How might they respond? I love that one. All right. Thank you, Jake. So we're going to just do a little moment or two of centering practice. So I'd invite you to, you can do this standing if you would like, or sitting, whichever you prefer. And I'd invite you to close your eyes if you're okay with that, or just lower your eyes so you're not staring at the screen. Just lower your eyes is fine. And we'll take 2 breaths together. So we'll breathe in and then pause and then breathe out with your lips pursed. So you're breathing out through your mouth. So let's breathe in, pausing for 3, and breathing out. And in, pausing for 3, and out. And now just scan your body from head to foot and notice where you feel at ease in your body. Where are you feeling comfortable in your body? Send love and gratitude to those parts where you're feeling at ease. We tend to take our bodies for granted. And especially when where they feel at ease, it's like, yeah, we just depend on them. Send love and gratitude. And now notice without judgment, any parts where you feel tense or constricted or have pain. Breathe into those parts. Send love and gratitude to those parts. And now tense up your whole body. For me, that means I like tighten my knees, clench your butt, hold your breath, put your shoulders up, do whatever works for you to tense up your whole body. And let's hold that for a few seconds, tense. And now let go of that tension. Breathe out. Feel your feet on the earth. Unlock your knees. Drop your shoulders. Center your head. Take some deep breath down to your belly. Is when we're centered in our bodies, we're literally harder to push off balance, right? We're centered, so it's harder to push us off balance. And it also makes it harder. Our body and our minds are interconnected totally. So when we're centered in our bodies, we're actually harder to push off balance emotionally as well, psychologically as well. So if we're in a protest and things are escalating, I think one of the helpful things to do is to center your body, right? To do that tense thing and then relax your body so that you're more centered and grounded. And then you can make those choices. You can think, you can look around, you can notice, you can make decisions, choices, conscious choices about how you want to react. You don't need to just react in the moment and get from your pushed off balance place. So let's just do 2 breaths together to close. And this is another breathing. So we did the one where you breathe, you pause for 3, and then you breathe out through your mouth, through pursed lips. This is another breathing technique that can be helpful, just whatever works for you. And it's called box breathing. And so you may have seen diagrams. It's where you go, you breathe in for 4, pause at the top for 4, breathe out for 4, pause at the bottom for 4, breathe in. So it's 4, 4, 4, 4, breathe in, pause for 4, out, pause for 4, bottom. So let's just do that together. So we'll do 2 of those box breaths. So breathing in for 4, 2, 3, 4. Pausing for 4, 2, 3, 4. Breathing out, 2, 3, 4. Pausing, 2, 3, 4. Breathing in, pausing, breathing out, pausing. Thank you. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes, come back, and let's move on to communication skills. Ellen.
Thank you. Thank you, Vivian. There's lots of gratitude for you in the chat, which you may notice now that you are no longer helping us all breathe.
I have to say, it's really hard leading breathing exercises because when you speak and trying to breathe and speak at the same time in the right direction is quite difficult.
You're muted again, Vivian.
I just said something, but then stopped, so I thought I'd finished. I wasn't.
You muted for a little while there. Anyway, moving on, now that we have breathed, we want to talk a little bit about those communication skills now that you have centered yourself. Again, this applies regardless of what your position is, again, official, not official, but information is clearly important and powerful. And one of the key roles of a peacekeeper is often to communicate with other people and with at the protest and within the team. So it's really useful to stop for a few moments and think about what contributes to clear communication. And it is more than just your words, and it's more than just any one thing. So if people could think about what helps them when people are trying to communicate with them, what would be helpful to you if someone was communicating with you in terms of physical tone, all of those sorts of things. Eye contact, absolutely. Body language and tone, absolutely. Not interrupting people. Smiles, which these days with masks is a little bit more challenging. Speaking at an audible volume, listening, gesturing in some way, respecting people's space, making I statements, nodding your head. Sorry, I got lost for a second. Asking open-ended questions is great. Asking questions at all is great. Again, you are communicating with people, so validating. One of the things that I always think is useful to remember is that communicating with people clearly depends less on your words and more on your body. It's about people take in about 10% of your words. Your body language is about 50%, and your tone is about 40%. So it's really important for us to consider all of the possibilities and all of the things, what that looks like. Jacob, can you just put up slide 6 for a moment? Just to see what else there is there. So we talked about eye contact, greeting people in some way, your expression, checking your tone. People talked about this, the gestures, using clear, short words. Body language, I just spoke about. Might be helpful to have one sentence to explain what you're doing or what you're suggesting or asking of people. Giving choices and options rather than ordering people. I know people were concerned before with peacekeepers policing people. So one of the ways to work against that is rather than telling people what to do, suggesting something, asking them if they'd be willing to do something, saying the organizers have asked us to go in this direction. It's clearly up to you which way you go, but could you go in that direction with the rest of people? Repeating things. One of the things, if we're in a large crowd, might be 2 techniques, mic check, which is repeat after me. So if you're in a large crowd and somebody is communicating something and you can't hear it, people won't be able to hear it at the back of the crowd, it's to repeat in short bits what someone is saying. So if it is everybody please, then people would repeat everybody please. Can you stop? Can you stop? So people can catch up with the march, can catch up with the march, or whatever that happens to be. The other technique that we often use in trainings, but is really useful in big crowds, is what's called contagious silence, which is basically helping. Exactly, Occupy was used mic check a lot. Wasn't new with Occupy, but it was widely popularized at that point. Contagious silence is if people are loud and you're trying to get everybody's attention, is to put your hand over your mouth and raise your hand up and have other people copy that. And then everyone is quiet so you can hear instructions or hear what somebody is saying. It's really hard to do this online, I will say. And there are other hand signals that you can employ to communicate with people. I think that's that. You can take away that slide. Thank you. Mirroring, other people have said other things. Vivian said yes, the mic check was started, as far as I know, with WTO being widely used back in the day. So those are just some things. Somebody just suggested a chant, which is also useful. Chants can be used to communicate really well with people. Slow in the front, protect the back. There are lots of other things that people have been employing out on the streets that use some of these techniques. So that's communication skills. People want to, again, wiggle in your seat, stretch your arms, whatever you need to do to like stay present. We're going to talk about de-escalation skills, which y'all, we know a lot about already. You've already demonstrated that you do. It's basically helping people to regain, I should say, emotional control and calm down. So what might you do that escalates people in your role as a de-escalator or peacekeeper? What might you do? You already, some of the comments before that. Were about condescending to people or arguing with people. What are some other things that people do that you might do that would tend to escalate people? Yell and antagonize, ooh, touch people. Yeah, that will trigger many people, myself included. Argue with people, judge them, tell them what to do, match their aggression. Yeah, all those things. So we clearly all know that that there are things we do or can do, including telling people to calm down when they're really agitated, that pisses people off more and escalates them. So on the other side of things, I'm just gonna then echo one other thing that just came up, which is not following the leadership of those impacted Black, Indigenous, and people of color, and doing something that isn't in keeping with what you're being asked to do. So what, for all of those things and others, what could you do, can you do to de-escalate situations when someone is agitated, escalating, upset? What are some of those things that you might do in the chat? Listen, say, I hear you. Watch your tone, speak gently. Don't mirror back the anger. Talk quieter, repeating what they told you. Be careful about how you're presenting yourself, what your body looks like, how your tone is. One of the things someone just pointed out, and it's true, so if somebody is yelling and you immediately drop to a very, very quiet tone where you can barely hear, that often infuriates people even more. So there is a step down approach of starting near their level and walking it down, and people tend to match your tone, not always, but tend to match your tone. And one of the other suggestions here, which is great, is like asking people if maybe they'd like to step to the side to be able to talk, so that they don't feel like they're in the middle of things. You can hear each other. Asking questions is really important. Being present, showing them respect. Being present. Jacob, can you, let's see, what else is there? All of these things work. One of the important things to note is not everything works in every situation. And different people are going to respond differently to things you try. Hopefully you may have a buddy with you also, and they may be able to step in with a different approach. Sometimes that works. Jacob, could you put up slide 7 for a second? This is some of the things that you all have said, and there are many more. But again, going back to what Vivian just had us practice with the grounding and self-regulating of yourself. And use those skills. Practice active listening, which is what you all have been saying, which is reflecting back to them, listening, focusing on them, their concerns, empathizing, hearing them. Often we are ready with like retorts to people, and it's really often de-escalation is about letting people know. People are often upset because they're not being heard. So letting them know you hear what they are saying, what they are feeling, offering choices to them. I can tell that you're really frustrated because the march is blocking your way, sort of thing, of acknowledging that what they're feeling is really is a feeling, and they're entitled to those feelings. Suggesting alternatives. We also were talking earlier about body language, so posture and tone and facial expressions. You all have been talking about, all really important. And also in this day when we're all walking around in masks, it used to be really easy to communicate with people with smiles or mouth gestures or facial expressions, and we're often covered up in a way that it makes that more difficult. So we need to practice more some of our posture and tone and gestures. Shifting the environment, which people mentioned, stepping over here so I can hear you better, and separating out the escalation from what's going on so that it's a separate piece and it's not all in the heat of the moment. It's also important, someone has noted, recognizing your own triggers. So, and being aware of them, and honestly telling people around you who you're working with what your triggers are. So as a person who has had issues in the past personally with alcoholism, people in my life who are alcoholic, I have a trigger when it comes to dealing with people who are really drunk, which sometimes they are. And, you know, that whole smell triggers me in a way that I'm probably not the best person to be dealing with that situation. And I would probably ask someone else to take that on instead of me trying to work through all the things that are triggering me, if that's possible. Okay, thanks, Jacob. I think we're done with that slide. A lot of good comments in, and again, reiterating that masks make it really difficult sometimes to read what somebody else is really feeling or doing. And being calm and practicing those calming methods is a way to sort of mitigate that or work around that. Okay, that's a lot of information and slides, and we will send you all of this information. But right now, yay, we're going to have you all practice some of these things with some exercises in breakout rooms. Vivian?
All right, thank you. So yeah, in a minute, we'll have you in breakout rooms in groups of 4. And but first, Ellen and I are going to demonstrate what you'll be practicing, a different scenario, but to give you a sense of what we're asking you to try out. And then we'll come back and debrief, and then you'll be back in breakout rooms and try. Anyway, so I'll get really clear on the logistics. But what you're going to be doing is, so you'll be in fours. When you get in the breakout room, just say hi to the other people in your room, share your names, and work out, two of you are going to be the role players and two of you are going to be observers first, right? So decide, when you get in the room, decide who's going to be the role players, who's going to be the observers. And then within the role players, the person whose name is closest to the beginning of the alphabet, you're going to be the escalated person first. You're going to take turns, so, but you'll be the escalated person and the other person will be the peacekeeper or the person trying to de-escalate. And then we'll give you timings and then you'll switch. So you both get a chance to be the escalated person and the de-escalating person. And the observers will be just observing. If you have any time left in your rooms, you can start debriefing, or otherwise we're going to come back to the main room and we'll debrief there. Then we'll do it again. And this time, the people who were observers before will be the role players and vice versa. But first, Ellen and I will just demonstrate a little bit. So what we're going to do is one of us, I'll just be the escalated person and Ellen is going to just use some of the skills we've just talked about, right? She's going to stay calm. She's going to breathe. She's going to pause before reacting if she wants to. She's going to, you know, do whatever works to help me regain my center, right? I've lost my center. I'm escalated for whatever reason. So she's going to use active listening and all those kind of things that we just talked about. Okay, so let's say, Ellen, you're a protester, right? Peacekeeper protester, and I'm a bystander seeing the march, right? It's a police, defund the police march. So this will involve some yelling, so I'm going to yell just to warn you, trigger warning. Okay. What do you mean defund the police? It's like my friend got robbed the other day and it took 12 hours before the police got there because we don't have enough police already. How can we defund the police?
Hi there, I'm Ellen.
Hi.
Sounds like you're really angry.
What do you mean defund the police, Ellen?
Well, what do you think would be helpful with the police right now?
With the police what?
Right now.
I think
people
we need more police
here because they're concerned about some of the issues with the police. So are there issues you're concerned about?
Yeah, I think we need more police. Because my friend, you know, was left, just been robbed, right? It was traumatic. And was left for 12 hours, you know.
I'm really sorry to hear about your friend. Are they okay? Other than being robbed, but are they okay physically?
Yeah, luckily. All right, so we're going to finish there. Great job. Let's give Ellen some appreciation. Yay. And I could feel in myself, right? In fact, the first thing she did really threw me off, right? From my escalated place, right? I wanted to stay there. It's a little hard to stay there when the person comes to you and says, hi, I'm Ellen. I'm like, wait, it's hard to just keep yelling here. But I brought myself up to yell again because sometimes people, when we're escalated, we want to just keep going, right? And so then what were some other things she did, right? She heard what it was that I was concerned about. She didn't argue with me. She's like, oh, it sounds like, you know, you have you think there's some issues with the police. What are they, right? And it was very hard to stay in the escalated place because
they need a fucking training.
She was listening to me. Sorry? I didn't hear what the person said there. Anyway, so good job, Ellen, right? So that's what you're going to practice is one of you will be the escalated person and we'll give you the scenario and the other will be practicing de-escalating. You'll just do it for two minutes or so. And then you're going to switch so that you both get a chance to be the escalated and the de-escalating. And in your fours, two of you are going to be role-playing, two are observing. Then you'll come back and debrief, then we'll come back and the observers will be the role players and it'll be a different scenario for the second one. Let's see. As I said, warn anyone else who's in your room so that they know that you might be yelling. If you have questions, you can call for help. So one of us could go into your room and explain if you're confused about what you're doing, or you can come back to the main room. And, you know, obviously it can bring up strong feelings when someone's yelling at you, even if it's on a screen and it's, you know, it's a friend or a friendly person in real life. But, you know, if you want to be in protests, there will be yelling, there will be these things happening. So it's really good to practice in a safe space like this, rather than for your first time or, you know, suddenly experiencing it in real life on the street. So really helpful to practice. I'd really encourage you to do it. Obviously it's optional, but I would say I've learned more by role playing than any other methodology of learning. It's a very, very powerful methodology. But obviously, you know, take care of yourself. If you feel like you just can't do it, you just let your partners know, and you can come back to the main room. Let's see. Oh yeah, don't forget to ground, center yourself, right? You don't need to just react quickly. You can, you know, pause, breathe. And we're putting Ellen's going to put the instructions for the first scenario in the chat. So they'll be there. So when you get into the breakout rooms, I don't know if you're familiar with them or not, but usually the chat closes. And so you have to actually open the chat again often when you get into the breakout room. So make sure you do that so you can see the instructions. But I'll tell you what the scenario is, just in case you can't access the instructions. So when you get in your room, you're going to introduce yourselves, decide who's role playing, who's not. And the person with the name closest to the beginning of the alphabet will be the escalated person. And you're going to be an angry driver. You've got out of your car. You've been blocked by a march, a Black Lives Matter march. You've been blocked by it. You've got out of your car and you're yelling at the other person who's the person who's practicing de-escalation. And you're saying, I'm angry because I'm trying to get medicine to my grandmother. She lives across town. I need to get through here to get to her. And the peacekeeper de-escalator is going to use their de-escalation skills. So any quick questions?
Vivian, this is Jacob. May I say two quick things?
Yeah.
There are a couple of people who were admitted in the last couple of minutes. So you'll stay in the main room, but I will subsequently assign you to a breakout room. And also to breakout rooms, a number of people have moved around or disappearing. So you may end up in a room that only has 3 people. Could you just tell them what to do, please, Vivian?
Yeah, if there's 3, then why don't you just have one of you just be the observer, you know, just decide who's going to role play, still get 2 people role playing. You'll have 1 observer, and then you will come back and debrief. And then maybe Jacob, you can try and mix them around so that there's 4 of them in the second round.
Absolutely.
Maybe, if you can. But if not, and when in doubt, just come back to the main room if you're confused or you're left on your own. Sometimes that happens, right? These things happen on Zoom and everything else. Okay, so are they going to get taken automatically into the breakout room, Jacob, or will they have to say yes?
I'm moving them right now.
Okay, thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, have fun. So Jacob, I got a thing saying join breakout room 32, and I had the option of later.
Yeah,
later,
you don't have to do it. I just put you 2 in a breakout room so that you wouldn't be mixed up you wouldn't be lost. Okay. You can just stay here.
Yeah.
So should we click later or just close it?
I clicked later.
Okay, that's what I did.
Okay. So let's see. We have a lot of people here. Why doesn't everybody unmute? Everybody who's in the main room, please unmute. Is there anybody here in the main room who would like to go into a breakout room?
I would.
Oh.
Hi, David. Hey, great to see you.
Hi, David.
Hi, Ellen. Hi.
Okay, so now, I don't know quite how to do this. How do I assign people now to a breakout room? Let's see. David said he wants to do. Let's see if I can do that.
Don't worry if it's difficult.
Yeah,
You
I don't
know,
need to.
David.
But if it's obvious.
It's funny. Under more, I don't see ability to send you to a breakout room, but there must be a way.
Yeah, there's some way to open the breakout room box, and then you can select people by name and decide where to send them. But
So we might just ask you, David, to be one of the role players in
I,
this main room.
I'd be happy
If you don't
to.
mind. Maybe we should
Good
do that.
idea. So yeah, what we'll do with the people who are in the room, we'll do it here. Not all of you will be able to take part. Obviously, you'll mostly be observers, but we do need 2 volunteers to be the role players. So David, thank you for being one of them.
Yeah.
Is there someone else who would like to be a role player?
That's
So-
good. My internet's super unstable, so I'd love to observe.
Okay, all right.
That's fine, Elizabeth.
So everyone else in this room has their camera off and their microphone off. Only Elizabeth and David show up as unassigned. So everybody else
Okay,
must
so
be
they
an
might just not
observer,
be here.
or they're an observer. So maybe one of you two and David could act it out
Yeah.
for us.
Do you want to be the escalator, Ellen, and David can be the de-escalator? Is that all right?
Sure.
Angry driver, you're an angry driver, Ellen?
Is that okay with you, David?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Lights, camera, action. Hey, why are you in the way? What's going on? I have to get across town and you're in my way. Honk, honk, honk.
Hi, my name's David.
Hi, David. What the hell is going on? I need to get over across the street a block that way to take medicine to my grandmother, and I can't get through, and she really needs it. What's going on?
Oh man, I'm hearing that your grandmother really needs medicine right now. Am I
Yes.
understanding you correctly?
Yes, I have to get it to her. It's urgent.
Okay.
She's really, really sick.
Oh, that sounds really important. Okay, so what's going on here is there are people here who are protesting, and we've got this line of cars to protect them from any danger. And unfortunately, just from looking around where you are, it's going to be really hard to get around this group. What?
My grandmother is in danger right now. I don't care about these other people.
I don't know how long it's going to be before we can help you move your car, but if it is only a block or two away, would I be able to take the medicine for you to your grandmother? Or could we go together? Or do you want to go and I could watch your car and make sure nothing happens to it?
I don't know you. You want me to leave my car with you?
Just an idea if you're not comfortable.
Okay, we're going to stop there just for time. And I just want to check with Jacob. Where are they at in their, did you send a halfway through message to switch?
I didn't, but I can do that now if you'd like. I'm sorry.
That's all right. So yeah, I think they need a message to say switch roles, right? Because they're going to do it twice. And
Yeah.
switch who's the angry one and who's the
Already,
escalator. Right?
please switch.
But we won't do it twice because we didn't start for a few minutes, right? So
Okay, I sent that message. Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you. So is this, oh yeah, the timing that I see there, that's the whole training, right? So we don't have a thing that shows how long the breakout room has been going?
I apologize. I didn't set that.
Okay, I think it's good to set that because sometimes people don't see the banner and also it helps us.
Yeah, I was busy worrying about the rooms. My mistakes.
No, that's all right. You've got a lot to think about. Yeah, so wow, let's do debrief David's de-escalating. Fabulous. So first, David, how are you feeling?
I am feeling kind of excited, and I know that I also have some worry coming up around, I went into problem solving instead of just de-escalation. And I worry that that isn't the point of what we're doing exactly. But I feel like I connected with you, Ellen. And yeah, I worry that it might not be that easy in real life, but I feel like we made progress right now.
Yeah, I would definitely say you made a lot of progress. Ellen, how was it for you?
Yeah, I had to work back up a little steam at a certain point when you were like problem solving. I was like, he's solving, but he's not really solving my problem. Wait a minute, I don't care. But I thought you did a really good job of, as you say, you started to make a connection with me. And if we had gone on, I suspect you would have more so.
I can always like offer my cat to pet if someone needs connection. So
Well, I thought you did a really, really great job of staying very calm. Your tone of voice was just beautiful. And you were talking slowly so she could, hear that. You weren't like speeding up and escalating further. And once again, you did the hello, I'm David thing, which is quite startling, isn't it? It's like just really hard. You have to work yourself up again to go back again. So that's interesting to watch. I think you're right that, maybe you didn't need to solve it for her, but you did hear what the concern was really well. And I think that is the big part of de-escalation, is just hearing what is the concern. And you did that beautifully. So yeah, very, very good. And just such a fantastic tone. And that's, as Ellen said earlier, it's not really the words that are the most important. It's your body language, your tone, and the speed, I would say, also of your talking. So that was fantastic.
Thank you, Vivian. Thank you, Ellen.
Yeah, thanks for Ellen for jumping in. And
So it's been more than 2 minutes. Shall I bring them back?
well, it's supposed to be 2.5 minutes each, so 5 minutes total. So how long have they had total?
Enough.
Yeah.
Right, so you can bring them back, yeah. I mean, it was with 2 minutes at the beginning for them to work out who was who, so 7 minutes it was. So the next one is 5 minutes total, I guess, unless we need to change it. All right, people coming back, welcome back. So one thing I learned from one of these Zoom things with a lot of people on it was the facilitator suggested that when we go in and out of breakout rooms, there's a minute there where you're just sort of waiting to be whisked off into space. She suggested that we run in between the breakout rooms so that our bodies get a little break. And I thought that was a really great idea. So maybe at the next time, if you want, then feel free to run to the breakout room. So let's do a quick little debrief of that. So first, let's just calm ourselves, take a deep breath, feel our feet on the earth, and think about what emotions came up for you while you were in the role play or you were watching the role play, because watching it can be, escalating as well. So what sort of emotions came up for you? You can put them in the chat. It was easier to be angry than I thought. Yeah, for some of us, we can jump right in there. Yeah. And for others, it's actually quite difficult. So, everyone's different.
Hello?
Hello.
Okay, this is me, Flora.
Hi,
Hi, Flora. This is
we're out of, yeah.
Alex. I was in Flora's breakout room. We were having some communication problems.
okay.
We're
Yeah.
back in the main room now.
Yes.
Right, we're in the main room. Hi, Flora. Welcome
Yeah,
back
hi.
to the main room. And Alexander, great.
So when I was talking about the de-escalation situation, with the communities of color and immigrants and refugees who speak another language, how about if I start speaking in Spanish?
Right.
Because remember, it's a lot. I mean, in our Latino community, this is one of the biggest problems. Brothers and sisters, they've been killing and updating the streets because they don't the language barriers.
Absolutely.
So how will you de-escalate a situation if you don't speak the language of the citizen?
Yeah, I think then it's really a lot about body language and tone, and or you find someone who speaks Spanish, right?
Yes, in San Francisco, Luis Góngora got killed. He was a homeless. So when the officer giving instructions and direction, he don't understand. So the first thing that the police officer did is when Luis Góngora tried to go inside in his tent because he was a homeless in the street, a police officer, her first reaction was like, yeah, shoot him and kill
Yeah.
him.
Yes.
Language barriers. We have police
Yes.
officers up there that don't speak our language. So if we're talking about communicating and de-escalate the situations, we need to have officers who speak other languages.
Yeah, totally. I agree. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
So let's see, I'm looking if there are any other emotions that came up. My solution surprised me, not something I would have thought of. Interesting. Take responsibility, and it felt intimidating. Ah, wear a shirt or name tag that specifies other languages you speak. Yeah, nice. I mean, the organizers, you know, depending on your context, right? As organizers, we need to be thinking about these things, about different languages, different needs, different accessibility needs as well. And thinking about those ahead of time. Good. So the idea for that one was that one of you was the escalated person, the angry car driver. The other one was practicing de-escalation, and the others were observers. So now we're going to do it again. And hopefully you're in the same rooms as before, but if you're not, just work out who's going to be the role players again. And this time the observers would be the role players and the others would be the observers. And it's a different scenario this time. So this time, the scenario is the person who's escalated is an angry white person, and the other person is a peacekeeper who's doing perimeter support at a black-led, black-focused grief ritual in a park, right? So there's the park, there are white people around the edges to help protect, at the request of the organizers, helping protect the space so that it can be uninterrupted as much as possible, respect the grief ritual. The white person is going to get upset, start yelling at the peacekeeper when they ask them to respect the space and not enter into it. The peacekeeper, you're going to be using the de-escalation skills, staying calm, keeping your tone friendly, speak slowly. So you'll act it out for 2.5 minutes. You'll get a banner telling you when to switch, and then you switch so that the other person gets practice to be the escalated person again. All right, so you remember to open your chat when you get into the breakout room, because we've got Ellen's put the scenario into the chat. So if you forget who's who, but the escalated person is a white person upset at not being asked to respect the black BIPOC space. It's not a black space, not even BIPOC. All right. See you in about 5 minutes. Hi, Sunny, by the way.
People are blipping in and out here.
I wonder if everyone got the option of later or join. You know what I mean? Because I think it's better if we just say you go. Because otherwise people get left without their partners in the room, right?
But they can come back. Yeah,
Right.
more technical things.
Christopher Baker, Cindy Minor didn't join. Ellen, of course, you didn't join. Lindsay and Tim didn't join.
I was in a breakout room, but I was the only person, so I came back to this room.
Oh, thank you. Yes. Sorry you were left on your own there.
Okay.
Yeah, people have been bouncing around. I apologize.
Yeah, no worries.
So do we want to do some people in here do this?
Yeah. If we have people who are actually here, you know what I mean? That some people without video may or may not be present. I'm not sure because
The only person there are two people showing video, Lizzie from Bellingham and George Unruh. They are the two with video. They could join you. They're both muted.
well, I can see them, right? George is
Yeah.
not visible, but
I was gonna say,
Okay,
George took a break. It's fine. He got up. I watched him get up.
mhm. So I'll just ask anyone who's here. We can do it. We can do one here, and so we would want 2 volunteers. So one to be the escalated white person, and one to be the de-escalating person. So is there anyone here? You don't need to show your video, but it's kind of better for the demonstration. But anyone here who wants to do it?
I will.
Great, Lindsay, yay.
I'll just give me 10 seconds.
Yeah. And who would like to be the other volunteer?
Lizzie's got headphones. That's good.
All right.
I'm going to switch to gallery view.
So
Okay.
hearing none, then I'll be the other volunteer. Give Ellen a break. And let's see. Okay, I'll be the white person. Hey,
Okay.
I'm good at that. Are you okay with that, Lindsay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So, hey, well, what do you mean? This is a public park. I should be able to just walk right in there.
Hi. Yeah. I'm Lindsay. I'm here. I'm attending this event, and people are just organized a space to grieve some people they've lost in their life. And
Well, I've lost people too. Maybe I should join them.
yeah, that definitely. How we're holding this space is just by being silent and showing respect in that way. Do you feel like that's something you would want to do?
Yeah, I would love to join them.
Okay,
I mean,
cool.
they look like there are only Black people there, but that's okay. You know, we all have grief.
Yeah, that's true. If you're comfortable, we could just maybe like stand together kind of on the outside just to give them their space for the intent of the hour.
All right, let's finish there. Yeah, interesting. Sneaky.
I wasn't sure if it was supposed to, if like it's an all Black space in the grieving area, but
Right, yes, and I'm sorry if that wasn't clear. It was, the idea was that they were respecting that only Black people enter it, and that was part of why it's challenging, right, as white perimeter supporters. But you just did such a beautiful job. I mean, really, of just staying so calm, your tone, incredible, you heard, right? I mean, how are you feeling, and how were you feeling during it?
It feels like, yeah, it's hard to like not come up with a solution, you know. It's like I always want to like fix the problem, but I think just, yeah, I don't know, like I feel like I'm okay at staying calm and like using a slow like speech, but yeah, you were very agreeable, so
Only because you were you were so good, right? It was hard to like yelling at you. Yeah. I mean, I think there's the thing, not necessarily coming up with the solutions, but giving them options, right? So one option, you give a nice option of just standing with me, and we could just stand here on the edge, right? One, we could say, or you could move around, you know, if you'd fully understood the scenario, which is my fault if you didn't. But, you know, or you could just walk around that way if you wanted to get there, or, you know, there are other spaces where we can grieve together, and just thinking if there were any. But yeah, but I thought you did a really beautiful job, actually, staying very calm.
And it looks like people are coming back in.
And respectful also, Lindsay, very respectful too. And neither agreeing nor disagreeing, yeah. All right. Everyone's back, it looks like. We're getting back anyway.
Yeah.
So let's take a deep breath again. Feel your feet on the earth.
Chica, everybody breathing.
And stretch if you want. Did anyone run between the breakout rooms? All right, so what kind of emotions came up that time for people?
My partner in the room had a desire that simply didn't like that like there was no way for my partner to get what they desired, and so I ended up sympathizing with them and talking about how wonderful the things that they wanted were, even though, you know, clearly the area is full, they can't have that right now. But
yeah, I mean,
I didn't say that last part.
This is a real scenario, right? A number of us have done that role, right, at Blackout Spaces, grief rituals, and trying to help maintain it as a Black space. And in a public park, obviously, you know, that's a challenge if there are people who really want to enter for whatever reasons, right? So there sometimes isn't a great answer or something. So it is just a matter of staying really calm. And it sounds like you were able to do that and connect with what they were seeking, you know, why they want to enter, what's going on for them, and are there any other options that can also, they can meet their need and respect the wishes of the Black organizers and the Black people there. So yeah, could be challenging. Yeah. Do you think it made any difference, your size, your age, your gender, your race, in your interactions with the other person, or would it make a difference? I see, yes, 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 yeah, because we bring all those aspects of our visual identities, right? Those markers that the society puts a lot of meaning onto, right? So all those things, they can and do often make a difference, for better and for worse. And so it is good just to be aware of those and to be thinking about, you know, is my buddy, would they be a better person to engage with this person or not? Or maybe one of the other peacekeepers there, am I the best person? And there's no sort of one right answer to who's the best person. It doesn't mean that always a white person is better talking to a white person. Sometimes people of color are going to be way more effective, right? Depending on that white person, right? Or vice versa, right? Or a small woman may be more effective than a large man, or less effective, depending on the other person, I would say. So never make any assumptions, but also I think it is worth thinking about who you are, who you look like, what you look like, and who the person is in front of you, and the sense you're getting of their responses. How to figure out the right person for a person of color to talk to. Yeah, I mean, there's no right answer, but I think it's worth thinking about. And talking with your peacekeeper team, if you're part of a team, then talking about that. It's also good to have diversity in your teams, right? So that you have different options. My height and size often escalates the situation. Yes, sometimes size can be intimidating to some people or triggering to some people. So just knowing that, and then, you know, bearing it in mind as you move through the world. I'm sure you do already, but you know, in escalated situations, might have to bear it in mind even more than usual. You only have a few seconds to connect with someone, so if you feel you can't, alert your team. Yeah, you don't have to do everything yourself. So we always try to work in at least buddies, if not in teams, you know, and have a communication system with your team and with your peacekeeper coordinator if you're in a team like that. Yeah, and sometimes, you know, if de-escalating is not our forte, absolutely, you don't need to do it, right? Definitely, you know, ask someone else, get help from someone else. But it is something that comes with practice as well. So, yeah. But there are many ways to support protests, so you don't have to do that, especially if it traumatizes you or triggers you further, then absolutely protect yourself, you know, don't do something that's going to harm you. Sorry, there was a question?
I was just going to underscore
Thanks.
something. Sometimes, even when we feel like this is something we are good at or want to be doing, there are days when it's not the right day, perhaps for you. Something's gone on in your own personal life, or you're feeling particularly fragile or angry yourself. It might be a day for you, even if you normally would do it, to step away and do something else that's supportive. It's totally reasonable.
Yes, absolutely. Take care of yourself. So in real life, like if we were doing this and we could only see the person's face really, or maybe a little bit of their body, but in real life, there are body language things that can be useful to think about when you're trying to de-escalate. So I just wanted to mention a few of those. So one is just having your palms open, right? Not clenched. I don't know if you can see them because of my background, but not clenched, but open and down, right? You don't want your arms up. It's more threatening. You definitely don't want them clenched. You want your arms down, your palms open. You want your knees unlocked because again, we're more balanced. We're harder to push over physically or emotionally. Gentle eye contact, not aggressive eye contact. And there are cultural elements to that. So being sensitive to different, you know, to people's responses to you when you do eye contact. But you do want to be aware, you need situational awareness, right? So you do want to be aware of the other person. You don't need to stare at them, but you want to know where they are and how far they are from you so that if they get aggressive, you can, you know, be out of reach. Calm tone, yes. Standing, rather than standing face to face, which is a bit more confrontive, if you stand a little bit to the side, that can be a little less confrontive. Definitely don't block their exit, right? No one wants to feel trapped and like they don't have a way to get out, so don't block people's exits. And we've talked a lot about all the other things. So any last, let's see, next to them as another option, right? There's a lot of stuff in the chat that I can't read here, but I do know that it's about time for break. So we'll look at I'll look at the chat in the break. So what we're going to do is I want to thank you for taking part in that. I hope you were able to practice a little bit. And actually, any logistical feedback you have about how to make that work better, if it wasn't clear to you what you were doing or anything like that, please put it in the chat or send it to us later because we really want to make it work for everyone. And it's hard to tell how well it worked or not, you know, because we've got hundreds of people and stuff. So thanks for any logistical feedback. So let's take a 3-minute break, 2-minute break, 2-minute video off if you want, or leave it on, it's up to you, but 2 minutes of silence.
are we ready to move into our next section, I think? I'm just going to acknowledge that there are a lot of questions in the chat that hopefully we will discuss a little bit. When we get to intervention, we're going to do one other exercise first that allows us to practice some quick decision making first, and then we will do some of the pieces on intervention, which I think I mentioned in the chat that some of you saw, that indeed de-escalation is one step and it may not work for everything, and you need to think about what those next steps are. And intervention is one thing, and it's stepping into a little bit more of a risk factor. And one of the ways that you might need to make that decision is with your team in a very quick manner. So we're going to practice the quick decision making for a moment. So again, you're going to be in breakout groups, different than the one before. The same things will, well, similar things will apply. You're going to be practicing how to approach problems and make decisions as a team. Even if you're with a group of people as a team that you know really well, and especially if you're not, it's good to figure out how you're going to make a decision and to practice that. Can it really help? Because in all of these situations, it's not a plan on to happen and to have to think on your feet, basically. And because that thinking with the team works better, we're going to practice that. And again, focus on what that looks like. So you're going to be in a breakout room with 4 people making a decision together. In this scenario, you're a team, you're a peacekeeper de-escalation team, and you're going to have another minute because you're with new people to share your name briefly with each other, and then you're going to have 3 minutes to discuss the following scenario, which Vivian is going to post in the chat. So the first one we're going to try is Vivian scenario number 1. A peacekeeper who is part of your team, but not one of the 4 people, or if there are 3 of you, the people in the breakout room that you're talking with. So one of your peacekeeper and is escalating with a right-wing heckler, pushing them, shoving them, hands on. What are you going to do? And again, we want you to go into those breakout rooms, think about that, and make a decision. And when we come back, we're going to talk less about the decision, which I'm sure you're all going to want to talk about, and more about how you did it. So again, Peacekeeper, it's in the chat. So remember to open your chat when you get into the breakout rooms. And Jacob, you can go ahead and send people.
Sorry, how many minutes total do you want, Ellen?
Just 3 minutes.
3 minutes total. Okay.
Yeah.
Rooms are opening. So in the main room, we may end up with 1 or 2 people who joined late. We'll see what happens. Nope, we're good. We're good. We have just the people who aren't participating. M. Roberts has a camera. I don't know what M. Roberts wants to do. Is this the last breakout?
What do we think, Vivian? Should we do another one or just stick with this one time-wise?
It's 1:06. They'll be back at 1:10.
You're muted. Vivian.
You're right, maybe not just because they're interested in intervention stuff. And if,
Yeah.
But whatever, be your call.
Okay. I think the answer is yes, this is the only one we're going to do, and I will share maybe one of the other scenarios we can share.
Yeah. I could put them both in the chat if you want.
Yeah,
Two or
yeah, when they come back.
right.
Thanks, Amanda. I'm sorry you got put in you ended up in a breakout room by yourself.
Yeah, and Susan Otis got bounced out. So Susan and Amanda just joined.
Okay. And they're going to be, can you send them a message that they've got
Oh, they're in the main room now.
No, not them, everybody else.
To tell them what?
Again, with halfway through or a minute to go or whatever we
All
were
right.
up to.
Yes, I will. I feel very fortunate to be part of this. Thank you both so much. You're so clear and concise and rolling, and you guys use the chat as an interactive tool better than anyone I've ever been in a meeting with. So thank you.
Thank you.
Jacob. Wow.
Everybody can feel like they're participating without having to raise their voice, right? It doesn't break the flow, but they can still join in. It's really lovely. And you use it a lot, very effectively. Okay, closing the rooms. They'll be here in 15 seconds.
Great. Welcoming everybody back. Yay. As you all come in. Yay.
I feel like this is the speed dating of breakout rooms.
It was definitely the speed dating of breakout rooms. And I want to acknowledge that was a really short amount of time for you to do anything.
Exactly.
And in reality, that's what happens out on the street when you're having to make quick decisions with a group. And again, I want to acknowledge that I'm sure you all want to talk about what you decided, but what I would love to focus on just briefly is some of the questions about process. But thumbs up or yes, did your group make a decision in the chat? Thumbs up and camera, or I see thumbs going up and the people I can see. Excellent. Yes, 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 great. So some of the other questions are, was everybody heard? Did everybody get a chance to offer their opinion? Again, thumbs up or yes or no. Talked about what they are, finding out what the organizers might want. Yeah, again, that's the solution. Did you, with each other, share space? Was everyone heard? Did you have a facilitator? One person who was facilitating. Some people are saying yes. I'm having trouble which the yeses are to, but whatever. Another question, were the people who are, you may not have had people in your room, you may have had people in your breakout room who were more impacted. Were you paying attention to that? Did you listen more carefully depending on who it was? And I see somebody making quick solution by 2 people of a group of 4, was that? Somebody assigned somebody to do it. Yes, you paid attention, all things you need to consider. And the other thing I will say, because we are partially short on time, is I want to say that sometimes in these situations, using hand signals or tools to check in and do quick temperature check sometimes helps. So to just quickly, if somebody throws out a suggestion, to do thumbs up or medium or down after a brief period of time. And to pay attention in these situations Some of us like to talk a lot, some of us talk less, to make sure that you're hearing from everybody, because sometimes the person who's being the quietest might have the best solution. And if you don't give them a chance and a way to hear them, you're never going to hear that. Would love to do some more of these, but because you all have expressed so much interest in some of the intervention stuff, we're just going to paste in the chat a couple of the other, quickly, a couple of the, I can actually do it, Vivian, a couple of the other scenarios that we had talked about.
I already did it.
You just did it? Okay, great. Computer, stop. So, you know, there are all sorts of scenarios that could happen. One, scenario number 3 there is something that certainly has happened in real life to me, where someone is taking photographs of people without permission, probably particularly organizers, Black people, Indigenous people, people of color, and we may or may not know who they are, and what do you do about it? So again, the question of planning for this, but being ready to think specifically about how you'd make decisions with people is great. And yes, it's legal to take pictures of people without their permission, but it may be, in the particular case I'm remembering, it was somebody from the right wing who was intentionally trying to capture photos to then use for other purposes. So what was the right thing to do for a group team? We are going to switch now, sadly, into, or happily, into intervention and talk about that. Because that's the next step up of, okay, I've calmed myself, I've communicated, I've tried to de-escalate, something else needs to happen because the situation warrants. And Vivian, you're on.
Thank you. So, right, as people have said in the chat, sometimes you try your de-escalation skills, but there's someone there who is, de-escalation skills work well with people who are just normally de-escalated. You know what I mean? They're upset about something, we get escalated. But then when people listen to us and hear what our concerns are, generally most of us are going to calm down, right? When we feel respected, heard, understood, then we generally calm down. However, as we know, in protest situations, there are people who are going to come to the protest with malintent, right? They are not there, they're not going to be de-escalatable, right? So just listening to them and hearing their concerns works with most people who have just normal intent, right? Who are just being themselves. But when someone comes and deliberately wants to escalate things and disrupt the protest, provoke perhaps violence from us or aggression from us that they can then have video and then use against us, right? There are definitely a lot of actors these days who are, who have a different intent, right? And so, yes, I would say try the de-escalation skills first, but then if they don't work, then sometimes we need to do something else for sure. And that's why we have our levels of skills, right? First, you ground yourself, you communicate, you use de-escalation, and if necessary, for people's safety, you use intervention skills that might involve some physical, putting yourself in between aggressors and helping protect the protest, for example, that kind of thing. So we thought we'd talk a little bit about that. When we do these trainings in real life, in person, which is what we normally do, right? We practice this physically, right? We practice it in teams. We do role plays of, if this happens, how will we form that wall, that blockade? How will we help this person? How we move them away from the protesters? But it's hard to do that online. And so but we will talk about them and try to share our stories for whatever time we have. So let's see, can you just show slide 9? Has some just sort of basic things, and then we'll get into the physical ones. So just basically, you want to do the things we've already talked about. You want to work as a team and back each other up, be aware of each other. don't do things on your own, especially if physically. Make sure you're in communication with the coordinator, right? The lead, get their support. Help people stay focused on the goal of the event, not get provoked. Distance is a good way of increasing safety. So sometimes you or other people, or you need to help other people, move away. Taking photographs of agitators or police while also respecting the privacy of activists is sometimes a helpful thing to do, just so that it can be used later. And being aware not only of what's happening right in front of you, which is what we usually look at when we're scared, but make sure you're aware of what's around you and behind you as well, because sometimes there are things there that you need to be paying attention to. And that's why it's good to work in a team, because then you can have various people, you know, taking on different parts of that. Can we go to the next slide? Usually there's a question about how to get into contact with who's the peacekeepers. Often peacekeepers make themselves visible in some way with a vest or an armband or something. It really depends on the organizers and whether they want them visible or not. So sometimes there's a visual cue. Otherwise, you just have to kind of ask. But there is also physical intervention tools, and I can tell from the chat that some of you have some experience with these, and Ellen and I certainly have a lot of experience with these. So and as we've said, right, definitely involves more risk. So I wouldn't do it unless you are willing to take that risk. You don't have to do it. You know, don't do anything that is too much danger for yourself that you really don't feel good about doing. I think, you know, just know you're heading to more risk if you do this, and it can be very effective at helping people stay safer, but sometimes you get hurt. So just knowing what your own boundaries are, I think, is very helpful. So stepping in between people, say someone in your march has started yelling at the counter protester, right? Counter protester has been yelling, the person in the march is escalating with them. Sometimes, right, you could step in between and just maybe start talking to one or the other, and that disrupts the interaction between them. Sometimes people in the chat have called it walls, right, or barrier lines. So you can do those together, just standing next to each other. You can link arms. There are different ways to do that. And you might have some people facing one way, for some people facing the other, so that you can know what's going on around you. There's also there's the U formation and the O formation. So U formation is where you have an exit, right? So with an aggressor, as we've said before, you don't want to block their exit, right? Because a trapped animal, and we're animals, doesn't like it, right? So trapped against their will, an aggressor is going to probably get more escalated. So U formation is where you don't surround them totally, but you somewhat surround them, and there is an exit, and you gradually move them away to where you want them to go and give them that exit. O formation is where you do surround them, and that's you surround us, you know, someone who is with you that wants to be protected, is okay with being surrounded, right? Because they're getting attacked, right? A targeted person, say, is being attacked by police or by aggressors. And so we do surround them. We put ourselves between the attacker and them, and we totally surround them. And that way we can absorb them into the crowd. There's also puppy pile. And that's where this is much easier to show in life than to say on here, but where you, with the consent of the person, so you would ask them and check. But if they're being seriously physically attacked, say they're on the ground, they're being kicked or being punched by someone, then you put yourself over their body on hands and knees over them, so that you're the person being hit instead of them. And then one or two others, you don't need too many people, but just 2 or 3 of you do this, so that the blows are shared between you and the person underneath is safe. And you get some blows possibly, but also there's a surprise element here. And it's interesting, but when we do surprising things, that can sometimes disrupt violence and aggression in an interesting way. It's very hard to be angry and surprised at the same time. They're really different things. So that can just stop them for a second. But that's puppy pile. Don't do it if you have a bad back yourself, you know, leave it for people who have strong backs. Self-defense posture is if you're being physically attacked and you want to curl up in a fetal position type thing on your side. You want to go on your right side to protect your liver, and you put your, if you can see my things, but you want to put your fists together behind your skull, fists together there, that's protecting, and then put your elbows close to your ears so that you've protected the base of your skull in case you're being hit there, and you want full to the right. And if there's a lot of you, you can try and go really near other people so you have a little bit more protection for your kidneys on the left. And point and sweep, you may have heard of. It's a great way to say there's something violent happening and you want to make it visible. If it's like in among a crowd of a lot of people and you want to make it visible, then if everyone gets down and then points at the fight or the beating up that's happening, suddenly they're totally visible, the aggressor is totally visible, and everyone can take photographs, they can be on camera, they're suddenly doing it in public and it's not a private thing anymore. And it also changes the dynamic as well, because suddenly there are witnesses in a way that there weren't before. So that's point and sweep, and we've used that quite a bit in the WTO, among other places. So I know we only have like a few minutes left, so let's see, are there any questions?
Hey, my name's Jacqueline. I actually do have a question. You mentioned that like noise can be disruption, and I was talking about this in the chat of like if you started singing or if you had a whistle, and like is there any actual technique to doing that? Because you also don't want to like scare people. Like I don't want to be whistling like a cop either and freak people out.
Right. I mean, surprise things. I mean, singing is often a de-escalating thing, depending on what you're singing and the tone in which you're singing it. I guess anything can be escalating or de-escalating actually, but singing and having people sit down is often a very de-escalating thing because it reduces the threat level and those kind of things. But I think you're talking a bit more about like a sudden noise that distracts the people, right? So just whatever seems to work in your context. I think it's very contextual. So sorry, I don't have a great specific, I don't think there's a right answer to that. Will there be further deeper training available? I don't know. Yeah, we all need more training, I would say. Yeah, any other questions?
There are a number of questions about how you do point and sweep so it works, and my experience is that it works. You just start doing it and it often works. So it spreads, it's kind of like a wave or something else. If a bunch, I mean, it helps if you're with a team of people and they go down to spread it so other people go down. It's rather like repeat after me, people's mic in some ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the armed open carry question is, becoming more and more relevant in these times, unfortunately. And I think we should start asking around for trainers for that, because I don't think, we don't all have enough experience in that area to teach yet. So maybe we'll get some other people to do that.
There's a question about showing up to something where Black Bloc is the organizers and you're a de-escalator, and what that looks like. And I would say that in all of these, people who are organizing an event have a certain amount of control and desire for what's going on, and I wouldn't circumvent that. I would choose to keep myself and people around me that I knew safe, but I wouldn't necessarily step into a role that wasn't being asked any more than I, as a white person, would presume to know what a Black group of organizers wanted to happen without checking first. So there's that communication stuff.
Yes, I totally agree. John Brown Gun Club, yeah, that's who I was thinking of when I was saying we could maybe ask for some other trainings. Yeah. So, and all of these the physical things that we've talked about, especially when you're putting yourself between aggressor and target and those things, really helps to do some practice with your teammates first. So I wouldn't recommend just suddenly doing it out of nowhere if you've never done it before in a highly escalated situation. That doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. I'm just saying I wouldn't recommend starting out there. But it really helps if you practice. So when you're able to be with other people that you might work as a team with, doing role plays is really a great way. And also thinking about what are the situations you're most worried about or think are most likely to happen, and trying out what you might do and trying out different options of how you might deal with those. And that's the kind of trainings that we would normally be doing in real life, and maybe one day we'll be able to do them in real life again. So I just want to give Ellen a minute to do our closing, and just really want to thank you for your incredible attention for this whole training and taking part, and your amazing wisdom in the chat. So thank you so much for that. Ellen, take it away for the closing.
All right, I was going to say similarly, you all have been great and we really appreciate it. We will be again sending out a follow-up email with links to some resources, some of the questions about, oh, you're putting things in already. I was going to say, if you could in the chat, in addition to thanking us, which we appreciate, also put in a word of something you're taking away from this training with some thought, that would be great. And as you do that, I'm just going to say that what we said at the beginning is true. Practice. You can never do too many of these trainings. You should definitely identify people in your life, whether you're connected to them personally or in your political work, who you feel comfortable with going to demonstrations with, and communicate with them as much as possible in advance, and practice if that is possible. And I think we are at 1:30 and we want to respect your time. So again, thank you all, and go out and make good trouble.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody. Really appreciate you.